This is the morning brief from the Economic Times.
The electric vehicle space in India has been charging up. India's top automakers are pouring in money into this space.
Suzuki Motor Corporation will be investing 10,000 crore. There's about 3 to 4,000 crore investment announced by Hyundai Motor India. Tata Motors has committed $2 billion, which is about 15,000 crore investment. There's 3,000 crore investment coming in from Mahindra and Mahindra. Kia Motors will be piggybacking on the investments of Hyundai Motor India. And just top 5 passenger vehicle makers will be investing close to $5 billion in EVs in the coming 3 to 5 years.
That's my friend and colleague Ketan Thakkar, the authority on all things automotive at the Economic Times. You will hear more of him in this episode. So, the Indian EV market is slated to grow at a compounded rate of 90% and touch $150 billion by 2030, according to industry estimates. Why this excitement and frenzy now? Well, clearly, the biggest reasons are the government's steep targets on sustainability and its massive push towards cleaner transport. Companies have realized that India is now ready to take the big leap into the EV space. Or is it? Well, challenges loom large, like fluctuating global prices of batteries and the fact that we are far from being self-sufficient in their production. Inadequate charging points on the roads, weak power grids, and all this when car makers are grappling with massive margin and cost pressures on their existing businesses. Despite all this, is 2022 going to be the cusp of maturity for the EV business in India? I discussed all this and more in a late-night freewheeling chat with Ketan and Sumant Banerji, another colleague and friend, ET's in-house expert on electric vehicles and everything that goes into making them. Stay tuned. It's the 12th of May. From the Economic Times, I am Anirban Chowdhury, and you're listening to Charging Up, India's EV Space, on the Morning Brief. Hi Ketan, hi Sumant. Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of the Morning Brief.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anirban.
So, we are talking about the electric vehicle segment and the kind of announcements that we've been hearing for the last 6 months. I mean, from Toyota to Tata Motors, almost every automaker worth its salt seems to have announced investment plans into the electric vehicle space in India. And new players such as Tesla's rival Triton are also coming in too. So, Ketan, since you've broken numerous stories on this, why don't you give us a lowdown on the significant announcements first?
So what seemed like a distant reality is fast inching closer, and it is no more a question of a potential opportunity. It is clearly now about long-term survival, that you need to be in this electrification race. And that's the reason why you are seeing such significant announcements being made. And what has really happened is also the convergence of all forces coming together. The central government is offering massive incentive to invest for cleaner vehicles. That has brought in huge moolah. Against a target of generating investment of 42,500 crore, the government was able to generate close to 75,000 crore of investment under its much touted production-linked incentive scheme. 95 companies participated in that. And as part of that, you've heard many names coming out and making huge announcements. I mean, 10,000 crore from Maruti Suzuki. Just a few days back, we heard announcement from Toyota Kirloskar. Tata Motors, the homegrown player which is leading the race, has already committed $2 billion. So clearly, it's all coming together. I mean, just top 5 passenger vehicle makers will be investing close to $5 billion in EVs in the coming 3 to 5 years. So clearly, the commitment is being made. The foundation is being set now for what is going to be a long marathon going ahead. The ecosystem of vendors and startup fraternities also chipping in with localization of critical parts, including setting up of electric vehicle infrastructure. So this I mean, there's a lot happening. And apart from cars as well, the low hanging fruit is two wheelers and three wheelers. Even in two wheeler space, close to $3 to $4 billion have been committed by various players, including the startups. So clearly, it seems to me that 21, 22 may be actually an inflection point in really setting the foundation of how mobility will be seen in this country in the coming decade.
Okay, and what about the big name, Tesla? Do you see that coming to India as well, especially after Nitin Gadkari's invitation? Don't make in China and import to India, rather come to India and make cars here. Do you see that happening?
Well, it does not appear so. I mean, they've been waiting in the wings for almost about 2 to 3 years now, and they've had a team which has done some serious lobbying with the government of India, but to no avail. To be honest, it is a chicken and egg story. At current volumes, it may appear to be little too early for them to commit huge investment in India. But then one may say they may be little too myopic in their vision to discount the long-term potential. It was speculated that government of India wants Tesla to show its commitment to India, and it was asking, if not for investment in plant, at least they should try and source parts in India, which has been proven around the world. There appears to be a frenzied activity there, but it's still a big question mark whether Tesla will invest in India, because designing and developing products specifically for India with its ground clearance, it'll call for a huge amount of complication. And it doesn't appear so that we are going to hear anything significant in the short term, at least.
Okay. Also, for our listeners, Ketan, I mean, I wanted you to give us a medium to long term picture on how the EV auto market will look like in the 5 year to 10 year horizon in terms of new models or platforms being looked at. So, for example, in a story last month, you wrote that for the Eastern giants such as Honda Motor, the road to EVs, and I'm quoting this from your story, the road to EVs will pass through a hybrid pit stop for most car buyers in the country. So, in terms of models, how shall we really transition from the pure play internal combustion engines to hybrid to completely electric powertrains?
Well, it's clear that you're not going to see one specific powertrain dominating the market. In fact, consumer will have choice right from petrol, diesel, biofuel, ethanol, CNG, hybrids, and electric as well. At the end of the day, with the rising fuel prices, you're going to see your vehicle getting electrified in some form or the other, but that's an extra cost. In a best case scenario, experts say for passenger vehicles, the EV penetration at best maybe 30% by the end of the decade, which may mean about, say, probably in a market of 5 million, about 1.5 million cars. However, for two wheelers, it may be a lot higher. The number could be 20 to 30% as early as 26, 27. So that will be close to 4 to 5 million two wheelers. That said, there will still be millions of two wheelers and millions of cars which will still be run on internal combustion engines. So you still want cleaner options there. And in a 5 million market, 3.5 million cars, it's as good as the number of cars that we sell right now. Those many cars are still going to be running on internal combustion engine. And hence you need multiple technology options rather than restricting oneself to just completely transitioning to pure electric in a way, because the infrastructure, the grids, the cost may actually not match up. But what I feel is that the inflection point in terms of the number of models that are likely to kind of start being launched in a frenzy, maybe somewhere around 2025, 2026, when you'll start seeing players like Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai, Kia, the leaders actually coming in with their own offering. And Tata Motors clearly has a lead now, and by 25, they've committed about 10 models in the marketplace. So clearly around 25, 26, I mean, my guess is close to between 25 to 27, you may see about 30 models, 30 electric vehicle models in the Indian market across price points, right from a small car to a big premium SUV, right from a Maruti Suzuki to an MG. Already luxury car makers are quite active and they are introducing models after models. So clearly you're going to see, definitely going to see frenzied activity when it comes to new model launches. But again, the penetration levels may not be that high given the pricing factor. They're still at a significant price premium to a conventional internal combustion engine vehicles.
So, Sumant, I want to bring you in here on the nuances of manufacturing because, I mean, you're the expert on this. From the point of view of a manufacturer and subsequently consumer, and this may be a very basic question, but what is the difference between, say, the electric variant of an existing model, for example, a Tata Nexon or a Tigor, and vehicles that will come up on a completely new platform, say the Tata's Gen 3 platform, for instance?
So the basic fundamentals of any electric vehicle when it comes to performance and range is that it needs to be lightweight. Now, lightweighting is something which the industry anyway is doing overall because it makes the efficiency go up even for an ICE vehicle. But when you adapt an ICE vehicle for an electric vehicle platform, there is only as much you can do with respect to bringing the weight of the vehicle down. So to bring it to the market as early as possible, the easiest way to do is to adapt your existing ICE vehicle platforms into electric. It's easy, it is faster, but it does not give you the entire benefit of what an electric powertrain can do. So if you build it from scratch, it will be a little more expensive, it will take a little more time. But for the consumer and also for the environment at large, it will be more efficient. It will also have a larger range. So if we take Tata Motors, for example, the Nexon is an ICE vehicle platform and they adapted it for electric vehicles, and we have the Nexon EV. It has a ARAI certified range of 312 kilometers. With the Avinya, the concept that they have showcased, which will be built from scratch for electric vehicles, to start off with, you will have a 500-kilometer range.
And when it comes to EVs, range anxiety is a thing, right? I mean, we've seen it mentioned in terms of scooters a lot. So I'm sure it'll sort of transition to vehicles as well, as, I mean, as far as the consumer is concerned.
It is. It is one of the most important aspects for the consumer when he thinks about buying an electric vehicle, because practically you may not be using a vehicle for more than maybe 30 kilometers every day. But there's always a chance that you want to go out of town, you want to go on weekend drives, and then you will need a range of about 400, 500 kilometers. Now, if an electric vehicle on full charge does not guarantee you that, then it puts question marks, and you do not want to be out on the road constantly looking at your fuel gauge. You don't do it right now because every 2 kilometers you will have one fuel station on a highway. But in an electric vehicle, for a fact that you will not get a charging station, and so that puts in doubts. So for a vehicle to become, and I'm talking about passenger vehicles here, for a vehicle to become practical and for somebody to get convinced, you will need to have a higher range. For higher range and better efficiency, you will need to build it from scratch, like Tata is trying to do with Avinya, and more manufacturers will do with their own vehicles. But if you want to rush to the market right now, you will have to adapt your ICE vehicles and make it into electric. But the range will be low.
Got it. Okay, let's take two other segments, one which has been in the news for all the wrong reasons. I mean, Ketan touched upon it very briefly when he was giving an overview of the industry. I'm talking about two-wheelers, and there's been a lot of news about scooters catching fire, which we've actually already dealt with in a very recent episode, which listeners can please tune into. It actually has very interesting insights from Shumanto himself. But I would like to know more about the growth or the potential of growth in this segment as far as the EV space is concerned. For example, I want to know, why aren't more companies announcing investment plans for electric motorcycles? Isn't, for instance, the electric variant of a Splendor critical to make this segment more mainstream? I mean, after all, motorcycles do constitute 66% of the two-wheeler segment, right? Shumanto?
So this is a very intriguing question. And I, in fact, did a story on the curious case of the missing electric motorcycle a few months back. And ironically, a company like Bajaj Auto, which only makes motorcycles in the ICE domain, decided to enter into the electric vehicle space with an electric scooter, the Chetak. So everybody seems to be sold out on electric scooters. Nobody seems to be betting big on electric motorcycles right now. Now, as whoever I've spoken to, I've always got divided opinions, and I'll break my answer into two parts. One is, why so many electric scooters right now? The answer is very simple, because China is very big on electric scooters. They don't have too many electric motorcycles. So the ecosystem is ready for electric scooters there. It's very easy for any company, and these are largely startups that have come in the electric two-wheeler space. They bring in that technology which is available in China, and they try to replicate the same model. Since not too many electric motorcycles are available, so not so many companies are present. A scooter is mostly used for traveling within the city. A motorcycle, on the other hand, is more stylish. It is more performance oriented, and it is used in some parts to go from one city to the next. So it needs a bigger battery, it needs more styling, it needs higher performance, which means the cost will be higher. Will a Splendor electric be possible with the current rates of battery pack prices? Maybe not. Is electric Activa possible, which is the largest selling ICE scooter? Absolutely. And we have seen scooters from Hero Electric and Okinawa come in at around the same range. Ola has more performance, and it is also not atrociously highly priced compared to the Activa. So it is possible to bring in an electric scooter almost at the parity level of the largest selling scooter. But as of now, it is not so much possible to bring in an electric motorcycle at the same price as the Splendor.
Right. Okay. Coming to the next segment that I was talking about, which is electric commercial vehicles. Now, our transport minister, Nitin Gadkari, wants to ultimately shift to a scenario wherein 100% of public transport will be electric. And of course, Tata Motors is leading the way by recently winning the 5,000 crore rupees contract for electric buses, which is the biggest contract, I guess, in India. On the other hand, the segment which has really made the deepest penetration into the EV space is the three-wheeler commercial vehicles. How do you see, Ketan, the dynamics playing out in this space? First, how long before we shift to a 100% EV public transport scenario? And is it at all practicable, potentially possible? And also, do we see heavy trucks in the EV space in the next few years?
Well, it's a wishful thinking, Anirban. 100% penetration appears to be more of a vision. But clearly, on the commercial vehicle front, the vehicle makers have cracked a business case when it comes to load and people movement. There is value in carrying goods, especially for the last mile, with a defined payload and a defined range. You're going to see large logistic companies and transport operators moving to electrification. You mentioned about 5,000 crore order. Tata Motors was the L1 there. So they're going to definitely gain a lot out of it. And Cummins' very own agency, CSL, has led from the front when it comes to aggregating demand. And this is only when it comes to the 5 or major 6 cities. So there are significant opportunities when it comes to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities where you are going to see local state transport undertakings floating their own tenders going ahead. So clearly, you're going to see a significant shift when it comes to electrification of buses. However, it may take years before we start seeing an individual truck or a bus buyer really start acquiring EVs, because still the price is significantly at a premium. And you spoke specifically about heavy trucks. Barring specific areas of mines or ports where distances are defined again, you may start seeing electric trucks. So as far as vision is concerned, to move towards 100% public transport, it's all fantastic, and there are significant steps taken in that direction, and one can clearly see the movement happening there. And probably buses may actually lead the penetration when it comes to electrification, followed by three-wheelers, followed by two-wheelers and cars, if you ask me, going ahead.
Since we're talking about the government, I mean, it is like it is in everything, in sort of a tearing hurry to push EVs in India. So the second phase of what we call faster adoption and manufacturing of hybrid and electric vehicles, or FAME 2, is currently on. But that ends on March 31st, 2024. The productivity linked incentive scheme covers electric vehicles and advanced chemistry cell batteries or batteries, and that's supposed to make batteries for EVs cheaper. But is the unwritten, unsaid pressure on companies too much to invest billions of dollars and technology and manpower in a new segment at a time when they're already facing pressures on their existing vehicle business? That's the ICE vehicles. Shumanta, I'd like to bring you in here. What do you think?
So again, Anirban, there are two sides to this. One is that there is no denying that the legacy automakers, the incumbents, they have not been very proactive when it comes to launching electric vehicles. They have been hesitant. It was needed from the side of the government to push them, and they have pushed them fairly well. When does a push becomes too much? It is subjective, but yes, it does look like the industry is being pushed far too much, because we moved from BS4 to BS6 recently, which entailed a lot of investments. There are CAFE 2 norms on emissions which are being tightened with the passage of time. Government is also talking about ethanol. We are talking about CNG. We are also talking about methanol. And in the backdrop of it all, the government is very clear that we want to go towards electric. So now all of that at the same time will put a lot of pressure on the industry.
So let's talk a little more about the challenges of this business. And I'd like both of you to weigh in on this. So the costs of lithium ion batteries, for instance, they plunged in 2021, right? But now the prices are on the rise again. That will obviously impact margins and then increase the prices of those vehicles. Also, what about the basics like charging infrastructure? How do you see these challenges playing out in the next few years, and how will these be solved?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the rising battery cost is definitely a challenge. It may actually slow down the adoption, fears some of the industry players. However, many also feel that it is just a speed bump along the way. Once the semiconductor crisis eases, one will start seeing some semblance of easing of prices when it comes to the lithium ion batteries. We've seen sustained increase over the last 2 years, and which has started having an impact, especially at a with a lower ticket price model like a two-wheeler. However, it is not seen that significantly in the passenger vehicle segment, where as the ability to absorb rising prices a lot more. However, having said that, in the future, beyond lithium ion, there are multiple different chemistries that are being explored by global multinational corporations, right from solid state, aluminium air. So you're going to see definitely multiple alternatives emerging in the horizon. But that's still a space which is being explored right now, and we are yet to see a solid alternative to lithium ion. However, the prices should come down eventually when it comes to lithium ion batteries. As far as other challenges are concerned, I feel the charging infrastructure, it is definitely coming up. And I feel just like buses, I do expect Government of India, CSL, to come out with a big tender for charging stations that will ensure there's proper distribution of charging station across the country. But more than the charging infrastructure, my biggest fear or the biggest challenge I think the country may face is on upgrading the grids. We have archaic, dated grids. I'm not sure whether the existing grids will be able to withstand several dozen vehicles parked charging at the same time. It'll choke the grid. It's a big question mark, and it's a big fear according to me. It's something that will play out as time goes on. For government to also upgrade the existing dated grids to modern, newer grids requires real estate. Now, what happens in a city like Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, where real estate is at a premium? How do you upgrade your grid?
So just to add on to what Ketan has been saying, and I'm so glad he raised the issue of grid stability. It is a very difficult problem to also solve, because most state discoms, they are bleeding, they are in red, and you need to support them with subsidies and incentives and doles from the government. How can they invest billions of dollars to upgrade their system? It is something that needs to be answered. But once again, on all of these issues, technology has answers. So it's not like we are groping around in the dark looking for solutions. Just that how do you execute and implement them is the real worry.
Okay, so how long do you think before companies in India also start making money on this segment? Just can you give me a timeline?
I think it's all about economies of scale, be it with regards to cost and be it with regards to vehicle makers actually start making money. I mean, as per Tata Motors, at a gross margin level, I think they claim that in some models they do make money. However, there's a significant amount of capex that is being put into the business. So it'll take a while for break even points to reach. So everything is going to depend on the penetration. And the other joker in the pack also could be from where do you source your lithium or from where do you source some of these materials. Localization is a big element, and I think that aspect is being addressed by Government of India's production linked incentive scheme, wherein people are actually spending huge amount of money in localization of cells here. There are semiconductors which are going to be localized here as well.
Sumant?
Absolutely. I think would electric vehicle manufacturers make money on day one? No. Did Tesla start making money in its first year or in the first 5 years? No, it did not. It took them a good almost a decade before they started making any kind of an EBITDA positive operating income. They are still spending big time. So in outright terms, net profitability is something that they're still chasing. But it is possible to make money. But let's make a clear distinction between how the automotive industry has operated in the last 100 plus years that we have seen the internal combustion engine. There were basically two powertrains, petrol and diesel. There was nothing else. In electric vehicles, the only constant would be that the vehicles of the future will be powered by electricity. So the next few years or the next few decades, we will not see the kind of stability and consistency that we are used to in the internal combustion engine era. So the variables will bring in a lot of confusion and kind of an uncertainty as to how to make money. But definitely once it all stabilizes, once we know for a fact that technology has kind of tapered off, there is money to be made. And there could be new companies that come in. Some of the old companies who do not adapt fairly well enough, they will die out. But there will be a lot of money at the end of the day.
You know, Anirban, if I could just add a couple of more points here. I just feel that we've seen this emergence of global climate impact fund. Now, Tata Motors being able to generate $9 billion of valuation and inviting private equity fund to fund the cleaner vehicle. So it just appears that all of a sudden there are many private equity funds and global impact funds who are actually queuing up. And that in a way will actually alter the way the break-even points in electric vehicle businesses are defined. It's amazing to see out of nowhere a causes impact fund coming and committing $7 to $8 billion. It remains to be seen whether that money comes in or no, but they've been acquiring factories and they've been setting up plants and they've been signing MOUs. Triton is another example. Not to be seen, very insignificant player elsewhere, but committing 10,000 crore rupees in India. So, I think this is a very fascinating story which is unfolding, which may actually alter the way the automotive business is done.
So there you have it. A sign of the times, a compelling business case, myriad challenges, but not all of them unsurmountable. As Ketan said, India does seem to be on the inflection point of the electric vehicle story. In a few years, almost every major automaker in the country will have new electric vehicle models to sell to you. It's you who need to be sold on this story. So while you won't see these green-plated, sleek, futuristic, gridless cars completely replacing the ones you drive today, you may definitely be flanked by them on your way to work and in the parking space a few years down the line. Charging stations will jostle for space with fuel pumps, and longer battery range will have competing ad taglines with fuel efficiency. And when you roll down your windows, there will possibly be cleaner air to breathe. That's all for today. You were listening to Charging Up India's EV Space on the Morning Brief. This episode was produced by my colleague Nehal Chaliawala from ET and Saundarya Jayachandran from Awaz. Sound editors Indranil Bhattacharjee from ET and Varun Kapahi from Awaz. Executive producer Arijit Barman. If you like the episode, do share it on your social media handles. The Morning Brief airs every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Thank you and have a good day. All clips used in this episode belong to their respective owners. Credits are given in the description.